Hey, I'm back. So this time I will do a voiceover recording because it will be more simple like that. I just wanted to share a simple method, or well, simple, the method I use when I have to do stamping, whether it's kind of deco-like things that I want to add on the metal. Here I'm showing you a ring I've made where I use really small steel stamps. And this is an inspirational design that I got my inspiration, rather, let's put it that way, from a famous, he's deceased, I think, it's been a long time, but it's a French artisan that makes jewelry. I will put the website because the company is still running, and they are specialized in sterling silver stamped gels that usually are put, like, they stamp poems and really famous quotes from really famous authors, and they do really nice things. So if you have no ideas of gifts for somebody who likes jewelry, you might be interested, you might want to check that out. It's Serge Thoraval. I kind of butchered his name in the French version, but yeah. So I will put all the links and all the tools and everything I mentioned in the description box below. Here is to show you what it looks like when it's worn. To do this ring, the sterling ring, I used the stamping, and I wrote the little sentence, "I shall overcome," with a 1.5 stamping kit that I found. I think it was on Etsy or something. That's going to be hard for me to be able to put the link of those, and I will actually try to put the link of stamps in from another shop that is quite really serious, very good quality shop. So here I'm going to show you what we will be using to stamp. The first thing obviously is a piece of metal. I use the scrap here for the demo because I took what I had on my hands, and this one is sterling silver. It's 0.80 millimeters thick. It has already been I forgot the word. I annealed it, and I would advise you to anneal it, to anneal anything when it comes to stamping. You also need a block, a stainless steel block like mine. I realized over time that using thicker ones are the best because it will help you make a better job with the metal while you're using your hammer to stamp, rather than the smallest one. This one is about 3 centimeters. I'm sorry, I'm a bit babbling already today. Here I'm showing you the hammer I use for pretty much all my works. This is a bigger version. If it depends on your needs and on your preferences, in essence, because here I've wrapped up a piece of tape to remember myself to keep one side really neat when I need to have work done with that marring the metal, and the other one where I can just kind of go crazy with the stainless stamps, for example. And it's a kind of little technique, but it's a good technique to keep one side, if possible, of the hammer, in this case, pretty neat. But I will use for the demo the hammer that is more easily that you will have. I will try to use the plain tools to show you this demonstration, because I feel it's better to use stuff that you might have already and not kind of show you stuff you don't have, tools you don't have. So this one is really handy. It's really light. The thing is, you have to take it in consideration, is that the weight of the hammer will make a difference on working with the stamps, because the lighter it is, the more strength you will have to put, obviously, to be able to stamp the metal. But on the other hand, using the really big one will make it harder for you to be precise, or you will have to take practice. So it really depends on your preferences on this one. Yeah, this is the big hammer that I use for bigger works, but it depends. It really depends on the project, because no matter what the case is, and no matter what you choose to take as a hammer, you will have to do it's a one-shot thing, but I'll explain later. And this is a little trick I've also found that you can find in your kind of hardware store. It's the type of sticky tape, but that is paper-like. The touch feels like paper that we use when we have to repaint, repaint a wall or things like that. Here are the smallest stamp I used for the ring. that are 1.5 millimeter high. Those are quite nice. And here, for the purpose of this demonstration, I will use the bigger ones I possess, because it will show better on camera. Those are 6 millimeters stamps. I found them online too, but they are pretty cheap quality, and I would advise you, if you're really getting into stamping, to put some money but buy good quality stamps. Here I'm showing you a method. I've only put some ficelle, I don't know how you say, but to be able to separate them. But it's annoying when they come up packed up and jammed in small boxes. It's better to have them in boxes like that, because it will be easier to use, as you can put them back into place when you're done and not lose any and know where the letters are, basically. So those are I got them also, I think, from Etsy, so I won't be able to put the exact same reference, the link to it, but you can find it pretty easily nowadays. Rio Grande, they have plenty of stuff. Yeah, like I was mentioning, try to buy good quality things, even if it's more expensive, if you want to have a neat job, make a neat job. So here I will stop there the camera, and I will set up all my small installation, and I will get back to you when I will have taped the ends of this piece of metal. The tape will only be used in essence to be able to keep in place the piece of metal as we hammer, and avoid making any kind of mistakes. So it's just a preventive step, but it's a really important step to do, especially if you're starting to get into stamping. Here, just like for the hammer, I forgot to mention too, but I usually try to keep one side a bit smoother than the other. I have one side where I've put this black dot at the corner of the bottom of the square, with ink to remind myself that this is the kind of dirty, crappy part where I can do hard works, and the other one is smoother, and I will only use for things that require me not to mar the metal too much. And especially when it comes to hammering and stamping like that, you want to be sure that you don't want to hammer or make marks that we don't want there while using the steel stamps. So here I'm back. As I was mentioning, I did put the tape on both ends, quite a big amount, as you see, to be able to really maintain the metal in its position. Drawing a small line on the bottom is pretty helpful too, with the permanent marker, because with a thin end, because it will help us have a point of reference, so to speak, to make something straight when it comes to stamping words, because I'm going to show you how to stamp words. But it would work also if you wanted to put a little line on the top too, to be sure that what you're doing is straight. It's facultative, you don't have, it's not compulsory, but I would really strongly advise you to at least put one line at the bottom to have something that will be a point of reference. The other little trick I forgot, like I randomly thought about as I was recording, was another good way to make stamps and to avoid having trouble stamping right and making something quite aligned when it comes to the letters, the lettering, is to use something that looks like that. Same, I think you can find it on Rio, I think. I find it on my French supplier, and those are thicker sterling silver wires, but in a really thick 1.20 millimeters thick, which is pretty thick, and it will be easier because you can choose the height of the metal sheet, and what it will be good for is to take it as the same size as your stamps. So what I mean by that is, here you see the sheet, it fits perfectly with my 6 millimeter stamps. So if you want to really ease the work to do rings or bracelets, you can use this method to make something neat without putting too much effort in it. And it is also important that I do mention this now. For stamping, I would recommend to use 1 mm thick metal sheets, whether it's sterling silver or brass or anything, because below this is going to be tricky. Here I've used the 0.80 mm thick scrap, but I would really advise you to, this is the minimum, like 0.80 is the minimum, and if you go below that, it will be really hard to stamp, and it will really make the metal fragile, and it will also mar way more on the other side, and we don't want any of that. So the thicker the better, but then thicker means also to have to put more pressure when you're stamping. So it's a choice. You have to decide whether you want to use it on thinner material or thicker material, knowing that everything has cons and pros. So here I will show you what I did, what I usually do, and this is a method that I've found more efficient. I've tried a couple, and this is I ended up sticking to this because it was the safest to do it like that. I'm going to take the stamp, like I was saying, we have the marker at the bottom, so we know where the stamp should pretty much stop and be standing on. You will have to learn because it differs depending on the stamps, their quality, their sizing. So it's something you will have to learn on the go as you practice. But we have the point of reference, so we already know where to put the bottom of the letter. Here, I was mentioning it at the beginning, but it's important to go, what I do is just one shot, like boom, you do one, I don't know the word, but you kick it once, you punch once, and that's it. You don't go over and over it, so you have to be precise, and you need to do it only in one time, because it gets more dangerous, and you can screw up more easily if you do several punches. So here it's important to leave some space not to crush your poor little fingers, and we're gonna go just in one go. For the strength that you have to put in, you'll have to learn. Here I did it a bit too strong, so it's a bit too marked in my opinion, and the amount of strength depends on like I say, the quality of the metal, the quality of the stamps, many things. So it's something you will have to learn as you go. Here I'm trying to zoom out to show you more of the motion, even though I don't think we will be able to see much, but just to give you a better zoom in so you can see what it looks like. I don't know what word to take. So I went up with a kind of plain, simple thing, love. I wanted to do it in French, which is amour, but there were more letters, and I'm lazy, and it had to fit in the little tiny sheet of silver, so we went for love instead. Here I did it with the other finger, I'm a right-handed person, but for the purpose I tried to use my dominant hand to hold the steel stamp, which is obviously the opposite. When you're right-handed, you want to use the hammer in the right hand, but it was just kind of a little challenge for me, but it was also to show better on the camera. So here you see, I feel like I punched not enough, it wasn't enough, so you can see also the difference between the strength and the pressure you put and what it looks like. The second one is if you feel that you didn't hit it strong enough, that's when you keep everything into place and you go and you give a second punch. But the key here is if you feel you didn't do a good job, you feel the pressure wasn't right, do not move a single thing and just go and hit it again with the hammer. And the important part is that you hit as much as possible in the center of the hammer and into the center of the stamp. Here I feel the pressure is perfect with the V, and this method I found to be very effective. When you're not sure of yourself or you're just beginning with stamping, you might want to be doing this, which is double check, which is one punch and then the second one to be sure. Here I'm using again my dominant hand as I would usually do, holding my hammer in the right hand to show you what it would be like. Imagine you screw it up. You did not do a good job for the pressure, but you took out the stamp instead of keeping it inside. Here it will be a bit tricky, but what you can do is slide the letter back, slide the letter on the metal till it goes back into the incurvation and small depressions you made onto the metal to be able to have the basic points, and then give a second punch. And if you did the job correctly and you had punched strong enough in the first place, you will be able to kind of deal with the mess without too much problems. But the last thing I've just shown you is a bit tricky, and I don't think it will work for everything. And you need to also keep in mind that if you screw up with the second punch while replacing the stamp, you screwed the work. So it's something you also need to keep in mind. It's really important to also hit it as perpendicular as possible. Obviously, keep the metal stamp as perpendicular as possible to be able to hit right in the center of it. And as you see, I'm going to try to make you a better zoom in, but on the side, as we've punched the metal, what we've done is harden the particles of silver and also bent it. As you can see here, the metal started to bend. Don't worry, this is actually normal. That's why we've put the sticky tape on the sides, because that was going to happen. And I would advise you, if you do work on longer sentences or bigger patterns designs with steel stamps, to anneal it in the process. Do a couple of words, anneal, and annealing will help to soften the particles of metals to work it better and to make it less fragile, because it gets a bit more fragile as you go along and punch it a lot. The other method I haven't shown you but that I've tried and worked well too is to put the tape just right on top of the piece, while using also another a big quantity, enough to stick the sides onto the bench, onto the metallic thingy block, onto the stainless block. And you can, the good thing about putting the tape on top of the thing you are planning on stamping is that it will allow you to make marks easier, because it will work on the paper like tape. Here, this is how it looks on the other side. When I said it marred a little bit, this is normal too. You can try to polish it off. And here what we want, it's really important to keep it straight when we work. So as I was mentioning, the edges are going to get incurved and bumpy. So you want to make sure that it stays straight, and that you use the small mallet, the plastic mallet, to do that. And annealing if you need to. The other method is to stamp while the metal is already bent. For instance, I was thinking about bracelets, but I really would not encourage you to stamp things that are already shaped. It's better to stamp it, then shape it, because when it's already shaped, you're going to de-shape somehow. So that's why I would do first the stamping, then the shaping, and yeah, that's usually the way I go with this. Here is the zoom, so you can see the difference when it comes to the pressure I've put in the hammer. First one, too much pressure. Second one, the O, not enough pressure. And the two last one, I'm happy with the amount of pressure I've put, and it's quite coherent. But this is a detail, but you have to practice and to see what you prefer when it comes to stamping. It's also important to work on something not only annealed, but if possible already kind of pre-polished, so you will have less work at the end. And when it comes to inking, in a way blackening the letters, you will have to use. There are several techniques. I've mentioned one on my channel, which is sulfur. It's a really efficient way, but it stinks, and you have to take precautions to use it. The simplest way I found was to use some ink. I will put the name of it in the description. It's resistant to water, it works on any surfaces, and it's the most cheapest, easiest alternative to the sulfur if you want to ink designs or letters. All you have to do is put a couple of drops, then let it dry for a minute or two, and then use your sanding sticks or whatever you use to polish to clean it off, and it will. This is it. This is what I'm showing you. It's the piñata I find it a French supplier thingy, so I think you could find an equivalent where you are. I will still put the link in the description box. And this is by far the best alternative and the cheapest I've found to be able to ink things without too much worrying about, taking more precautions than you should. And they also have different colors. I have actually never tried different colors, but it might be interesting to give it a shot. For example, bright red or ink or I don't know, orange ink or whatever. And so yeah, you just put it on, let it dry for a little bit, and then you just have to take it off with sanding paper or stuff like that, and you will have the letters that are blackened. I will also, this gave me, as I was recording the subject of the next video, which will be a really simple, easy way to blacken letters, or the metal, if you want to blacken it for any reason, oxidize it. So this is the next video that I will be shooting hopefully during the week, which is a really simple way to do it that I found recently to be pretty effective. So yeah, I think I've mentioned everything I wanted in this video. Here I'm showing you. I don't know what am I doing? I wanted to show you a more so you can see how I do it, because oh yeah, and I wanted to mention also this. This is another technique that I found that you can try for yourself. It's the imaginary square. Imagine that you're punching once right in the middle, and then you will be using it on the four. Imagine that you're pressing on the four parts, the four corners of a square, and this will be more effective for larger stamps, stainless steel stamps. I'm thinking about designs like this one, a sun, a star. The bigger they are, the more I would recommend to use this technique. Once you punch in the middle, and then you punch on every four corners as if you were drawing an imaginary square, and this will help you to work on bigger projects that you might not do in one go. Or you can use the heavier hammer, which is more safe anyway. It's safer to go hit one time, but if you can't, the four square method works pretty well. Well, I think I'm through for this video, and I'll see you around for the next one. Bye.